Not every desert is empty. Some deserts breathe, but not with lungs. They breathe with silence, with shifting heat, and with echoes that do not belong to you. Arizona's desert has always been described as vast, barren, and unforgiving. But those who have truly walked it know there is something else. It is not a place that merely swallows footsteps. It listens. It learns. And sometimes it speaks back. When you stand there, surrounded by endless rock and sky, the world begins to tilt in ways you can't explain. Shadows flicker against the sand as if they belong to someone else. Reflections stretch too long in the rare water that survives the heat, and for a heartbeat, you are not yourself. Something presses at the edges of your mind, subtle and persistent, until you start to wonder if the desert is not waiting for you specifically. Travelers describe places where time skips like a broken recording, where you walk a straight path, only to return to the same spot, as though the land itself folded around you. Others speak of hearing names whispered into the wind, names that only they should know. And when they turn, there is nothing but sand and stone. Arizona hides these fractures, these secret corners, beneath its brutal sun. But once you stumble across them, you understand. The desert is not just landscape. It is an archive of what came before, and perhaps what comes after. Tonight, you and I are stepping into that archive. Together, we will cross 5 places where reality slips, where memory bends, and where silence becomes a trap. Some who entered never returned. Others came back altered, convinced they were not the same person who had left. And maybe when this story ends, you will feel it too. That small, unsettling question scratching at the back of your mind. What if the version of you listening right now is not the only one? Arizona is not a desert of emptiness. It is a desert of voices, of shadows, of hidden doors. The only choice left is whether you will listen when it calls your name. Because make no mistake, it will call Mystery 1, the voices of the Cabeza Prieta Desert. In the far southern stretch of Arizona, where the borderland dissolves into heat haze and cracked stone, lies a desert that has swallowed more than just travelers. It has swallowed voices. The Cabeza Prieta Wildlife Refuge is among the most hostile terrains in America. Few trails, fewer signs of life, and a silence so heavy it feels sculpted. Yet those who dare to cross it never describe it as quiet. They describe it as speaking. The desert speaks in tones you should not hear. Voices that should not exist yet do. Hikers, soldiers, filmmakers, and wanderers alike report the same thing. They hear someone calling their name with a voice too familiar to ignore. A voice belonging to a mother, a lost friend, a childhood memory you never said out loud. Imagine trudging across blistering sand only to hear your father dead. For 10 years tell you to turn left. Imagine hearing your sister's laugh carried on the wind when she is hundreds of miles away. These sounds do not echo. They follow, they walk with you. The first accounts came during the 1940s. Military units trained here during the war, men hardened to endure noise, chaos, and exhaustion. Yet in the thick silence of Cabeza Prieta, even they broke. Soldiers wrote in journals about hearing commands rising from the ground, whispers woven into the hiss of shifting dunes. One note, recovered decades later, still carries its chilling weight. We are not alone. There is something in the sand that knows the sound of our childhood. Since then, the stories have multiplied. Some tell of hearing full conversations in the distance, conversations with voices of children they never had, or lovers they never confessed to. Others describe the desert speaking not through sound at all, but directly inside the skull. Foreign languages translated instantly in the mind, words that dissolve the moment they are understood. It is as though Cabeza Prieta reaches into the deepest recesses of memory and pulls out what will anchor you most strongly to its soil. Over the past 2 decades, at least 14 hikers vanished here. Not amateurs, experienced explorers with GPS units, water, maps, everything required for survival. Their packs were found intact, their supplies untouched. What baffled search teams most was not what they found, but what they did not. Footprints. Tracks would stretch across sand for miles, and then simply stop, as if the earth had swallowed not just the body, but the act of walking itself. One disappearance left behind a recorder, recovered days later by a search party. The final 47 seconds still freeze blood, the voice of a woman, gentle, coaxing. I know you are tired. Follow me. We have done this before. You trust me, right? The missing hiker's sister lived states away, unaware anything was happening. Yet the voice on the tape was hers, perfect down to every inflection. Explanations vary, none comforting. Some insist the desert is a natural acoustic anomaly, where rocks and wind shape sounds into illusions. But no science explains why strangers hear the voices of their own families. Others claim Cabeza Prieta is a psychic fracture, an energy point where human thought loops endlessly, replaying fragments like an old vinyl stuck on repeat. The most unnerving theory is that the desert itself records an organic archive that does not just replay sound, but intention, emotion, even fragments of a soul. Those few who vanished briefly but returned alive come back, altered. A woman once swore she was her daughter, insisting with tears in her eyes that she remembered a childhood she could never have lived. A man spoke with his own voice, but did not recognize it when played back on tape. Others refused to explain at all, whispering only that it was not meant for us to hear. Searchers who left cameras running in the dunes often came back with footage where all sound had vanished. No wind, no crunch of boots, until suddenly a whisper pierced the microphone. Too close, too intimate. Why did you leave me here? One explorer's unpublished video shows him walking alone across the sand. He stops. His breathing changes. Slowly, he turns his head, eyes shining with tears, and he whispers, "You came back." Yet the footage proves he was utterly alone. No one was there. Cabeza Prieta does not haunt with monsters or storms. It does not need to. Its terror lies in the familiarity of its lure, the intimacy of its trap. It waits, it listens, and it speaks with the voices you cannot ignore, the ones that hold you most tightly. The voices of those you love, those you have lost, those you will follow, even when you know you should not. And once you hear your name echoing across the rocks, you will ask yourself, was it memory, was it the wind, or was it something in the sand that already knew who you were before you arrived? Because in Cabeza Prieta, the desert does not just listen, it remembers, and when it speaks with your voice. Mystery 2. The Sandman of Sycamore Canyon. If Cabeza Prieta unsettles with sound, Sycamore Canyon unsettles with shape. North of Arizona's red deserts, the canyon cuts narrow and silent through stone, a gorge that seems unremarkable until the wind begins to move. Local hikers call one stretch of trail the corridor of living dust. At first, that sounds like poetry, until you stand there and realize the dust is not just moving, it is forming. The canyon walls trap the wind in strange ways, forcing sand to rise, spiral, and gather. But countless witnesses insist it goes further than physics. They speak of a figure condensing out of the storm itself, a man shaped darker than the air around it, built from compacted grains with eyes like dull stone, no shine, no life, but heavy with presence. It does not walk, it does not run, it simply exists, appearing against the flow of the storm, as if gravity and wind no longer matter. And when it comes closer, you feel not fear, but something worse, recognition, the kind that gnaws from inside. As if you have seen this figure before, in a dream you tried to forget. The first report dates back to 1972, when 2 geology students ventured into Sycamore during a sudden sandstorm. Hours later, only one emerged, dehydrated, broken. Whispering over and over, it came from the wrong side of the wind. The other was never seen again. Search teams combed the canyon and found no trace, but reported something strange. Faint footprints pressed into sand where none should be, as though someone walked after the storm had erased all tracks. That detail is consistent across decades. Witnesses swear the figure itself leaves no impressions. Yet when it vanishes, new footprints appear behind it, as if the desert rewrites its own story while the creature walks. Even stranger are the doubles. In at least 3 cases, people saw themselves inside the storm. Same clothing, same movements, but not quite synchronized. A man once described watching his duplicate lift a hand to wave slow, stiff, eyes like glass, and in that moment he knew the thing was not a reflection. It was an intention, a replacement waiting to take his place. Theories vary. Some say the Sandman is the canyon itself, remembering those it lost, trying to sculpt them back from dust and wind. A crude copy built not of flesh, but fragments of memory shape, without soul. Others argue it is something older, a being that inhabits storms, searching for bodies to mimic until it finds one it can keep. Video footage left by explorers offers little clarity. In one recording, a dark silhouette stands unmoving while wind rages around it, untouched by the force tearing at trees and stone. The explorer swore he saw nothing at the time. Only when he reviewed the footage did he realize something had been watching him, and it does not always end in the canyon. Survivors often speak of strange after effects. One man, missing for 2 days, called his wife from a nearby town. He told her he was safe, that he would be home soon. But she froze. The voice was his, yet hollow, drier, distant, as though sand had filled his lungs. She never heard from him again. His phone was later found abandoned on a trail he would never taken, coated in dust. Others describe losing their sense of self, temporary identity gaps, voices slipping lower, the eerie sensation of being watched, not by others, but by yourself. You're double lingering somewhere just beyond the edge of sight, patient and silent. Some call it depersonalization. Others believe it is a swap, a partial trade. As though the Sandman does not take you entirely at once, it begins by carving pieces away. In Sycamore Canyon, the danger is not being hunted, it is being replaced. The Sandman does not chase, he does not attack. He waits for the storm to peel you thin, for loneliness to hollow you out. Then he shapes what is left into something that walks like you, talks like you, and eventually is you. Perhaps that is why witnesses describe not terror, but familiarity. Because when the desert builds you again from dust, maybe it is not creating a monster. Maybe it is just finishing something that was always waiting. Mystery 3. The Nameless Ruins of Red Rock Secret Canyon. Deep within Red Rock Secret Canyon, where trails vanish into wild stone and the air thickens with the weight of silence, there is a place that does not belong. No maps mark it, no signs guide you, and yet those who stumble across it insist it feels less discovered than revealed, as if the ruins themselves decided to be found. They are not grand, not towering walls or massive temples, just 3 low stone walls forming a crooked circle almost swallowed by sand and time. In their center, spirals of carefully arranged rock, and on the surfaces, carvings, symbols no one has ever identified. Humanoid shapes with no faces, circles that do not connect, lines that seem to shift the longer you stare, as though they stare back. They are nameless ruins. Perhaps they always were. The silence here is not silence at all. Visitors agree the moment you step inside, sound does not vanish, it turns inward. Metallic clanging without source. Long groans like timbers straining under. Invisible weight. But worst of all, words that are not spoken. They arrive in your mind without sound, phrases you did not hear yet somehow know. People describe the sensation as dreaming, while fully awake. Lucid visions of cities with no sky, of walls that breathe in and out, of endless doors swinging open into nothing. And always, a voice that says the same thing. You came back. No camera has ever recorded the sound. Microphones pick up nothing but desert wind. But bodies react, ears ring, skulls vibrate, some grow nauseous, others collapse, unable to stand. One woman wrote that the air seemed to crawl inside her bones. A man claimed he left after a few minutes, yet his watch showed he would been inside for hours. The ruins bend not just sound, but time. More unsettling is how the symbols themselves appear to change. Photographs taken minutes apart show differences. New lines where there had been none, spirals thicker. Faces that were blank now etched with crude mouths. Experts dismiss it as shadows, tricks of light. But those who were there know otherwise. One visitor, a painter, described compulsively sketching the patterns for weeks after leaving until one night she woke screaming, her hands raw, dozens of new symbols filling her walls. She did not remember drawing them. Disappearances haunt this place too. Since 2005, 3 people have vanished inside the ruins. No trace of struggle, no footprints leading away. They simply were there one moment. Gone the next. In one case, a phone belonging to a missing man rang 2 days later. His wife answered, desperate. All she heard was breathing. Then, a faint scraping, stone against stone, as if someone were clawing their way through rock. Those who returned are never quite the same. Some complain of constant vibration in the skull, as though a low hum follows them everywhere. Others say silence no longer exists for them. There is always some faint noise just below hearing, a frequency that presses like a finger against their thoughts. One man confessed that since his visit, every time he closes his eyes, he sees a door slowly opening, though nothing ever waits on the other side. Theories try to explain the impossible. Some say the ruins act as a transmitter, a receiver for signals not made for human senses, a device that converts thought into sound and sound into structure. Others whisper that reality itself thins here, so thought bleeds outward and stone records it. Perhaps the ruins are not ancient at all. Perhaps they are still being built using the fragments of those who step inside, shaping new lines from the pieces of our minds we leave behind. One explorer, shaken and pale, left the canyon with a single sentence written across his notebook: "The ruins are not ruins. They are instructions." And if that is true, then the question is not who built them. The question is, who are they building them for? Mystery 4. The Road to Sedona. The Sleep That Shouldn't Happen. Between Sedona and the dark stretch of national forest lies a road without a name. It is not marked on tourist maps. It offers no shade, no signposts, nothing to suggest it should be noticed. Most travelers pass without seeing it. But for those who stop, whether from curiosity, exhaustion, or something they can't quite explain, the road becomes a trap, one made not of danger, but of sleep. The stories all begin the same. A driver pulls over for just a moment. A hiker sits down to rest. Someone leans against the hood of their car and closes their eyes, promising themselves it is only for a second. And then they wake up. Hours have passed. The sun is in a different place. Their bodies are heavy, drenched in sweat. Their noses bleed. Their mouths taste of iron. But the strangest part is not what happened during the blackout. It is what they remember when they wake. Memories that do not belong to them. A woman once described waking with vivid recollections of 2 children and a wooden house with a red door. She wept as she told the story because she had no children. Never had. Another man woke with the image of a different name carved into his mind, as if he had lived under it for years. Some even look into the mirror and flinch, convinced the face looking back is not entirely their own. One hiker wrote simply, "I am still me, but I feel like I came back wrong." Physical marks often accompany the sleep. Small, perfect rings around the ankles, bruises on wrists, as though held in place. In one notorious case, a man discovered a spiral-shaped cut on his side, healed completely, with no memory of how it formed. Evidence exists, though it explains nothing. Cameras set to monitor the road show people stopping, resting, lying down. Then, without warning, the footage shifts. For a fraction of a second, the image freezes. Sound disappears. When it returns, a new background hum fills the air, deep, rhythmic, more like breathing than wind. In one recording, a shadow appears beside a sleeping traveler. Not a defined figure, but an outline that remained motionless until the man stirred awake. The moment he opened his eyes, it vanished. Theories grow darker the longer you listen. Some say this road is a fold in reality, a place where 2 versions of a person trade places without realizing it. Others whisper about experiments, silent waves broadcast through the desert like a pause button for consciousness, turning people off and on again. And then there are those who believe this road does not belong to any one world at all, that every time someone closes their eyes here, they slip sideways into a life they might have lived, a self that almost existed. The most unsettling detail, however, is the calm. No one wakes screaming. No one describes terror. They wake strangely serene, as if they had been waiting for it their whole life. As though the version of themselves that returned understood something the other could not. One woman vanished for 2 days along this road. When she was found barefoot and disoriented nearly 10 kilometers away, she refused to explain what happened. All she said, again and again, was, "I was home, but it was not this home." Since then, she has lived in near silence, keeping her doors locked, her windows covered, as if still trying to hold on to whichever world she came back from. If you drive near Sedona and take that wrong turn, the road may look ordinary. Dust. Rock. Heat shimmer rising into empty sky. But stop too long, and you will feel the heaviness in your eyelids, the weight pressing you gently downward. You may tell yourself it is only for a moment, that you will wake the same as before. But here, That is not certain. Because some roads do not just carry you forward. Some roads pass through you. And when you open your eyes again, the question will be waiting. Are you still the one who closed them? Or was that the other version, the one who stayed behind? Mystery 5, the Three-Stone Portal. Not all mysteries sprawl across miles of desert. Some stand small, almost insignificant, yet feel like the center of something vast. In a remote corner of Yavapai County, far from highways and fences, 3 vertical stones rise from the earth. Each one, no taller than a person, but arranged in a triangle so precise it cannot be chance. There is no record of who placed them there, no history to explain their presence. The stones do not match the geology of the surrounding land. They do not belong. And yet, when you stand before them, you sense they were not meant to be overlooked. The legend is simple. Walk between the stones, and you disappear. Not forever, not even for long, just 1 second. Exactly one. Witnesses swear they have seen it with their own eyes. Someone stepping forward, vanishing into empty air, then reappearing mid-stride as if nothing happened. But those who return are never quite the same. People describe the instant differently. Some feel a crushing pressure in the chest, as though the air itself thickened to stone. Others hear a deep, impossible sound like a pop inside the skull, not in the ears, but in the mind. One woman swore she felt someone whisper her name from behind, though no one was there. A hiker claimed the desert grew pale before his eyes, colors drained, as if the world had been bleached for just that moment. Another insisted he did not remember crossing at all. He thought he had stopped before the stones, yet the camera proved otherwise. He vanished for a frame, his shadow lingering for a heartbeat without his body, and when the image returned, his face was different. Those who pass through often dream afterward, dreams of places they have never visited, yet remember in vivid detail streets that do not exist, houses they have never entered but can describe perfectly, faces of people they have never met yet somehow love. Some wake plagued by deja vu that stretches for hours, each action repeating itself as though already lived. Others speak of a constant sensation of being watched by another version of themselves, hovering just at the edge of vision, patient and silent. And then there are the artifacts. One man discovered a box of photographs hidden in his grandmother's attic, images dated decades before his birth. In them, a boy with his exact face stared back at the camera, standing in places he had never been. He burned the photos that night. He told no one else. Explanations stumble. Some argue the stones are a natural marker of a geological anomaly, bending time into loops. Others call it an ancient tool, a dimensional threshold left by those who knew the desert better than we ever could. But the theory that unsettles most is the simplest, that time itself blinks here, that for 1 second, the world pauses just long enough for something else to step through or for you to slip out, and return as someone slightly, fatally different. One explorer wrote in his journal after walking between the stones, "It is not that I disappeared. It is that I came back already knowing I was not the only one." He died in his sleep weeks later, his final drawings covering the walls of his room, triangles within triangles, shadows walking out of shadows. If you ever find the 3 stones, the temptation will be unbearable. To see for yourself, to test if the stories are true. And yes, you will come back. Almost certainly, but when you look at your hands, at your reflection, when you feel your heartbeat hammering in your chest, the question will come. Are you the one who stepped through, or are you the one who took his place in that single, stretched second? Mystery 6, the Hill of Iron Doors. In the region near Bowie, Arizona, a hill rises out of the desert so modest it does not earn a place on most maps. Yet locals call it with a name that sounds less like geography and more like a warning. The Hill of Iron Doors. At a distance it seems ordinary, just another mound of stone and scrub. But the closer you climb, the more wrong it feels. The first thing you notice is the heat, not the burning sun. Every desert traveler knows that kind of warmth. This heat is different. It seeps upward through the ground itself, pulsing faintly, steady as a heartbeat. Even at night, when temperatures fall and the desert chills, the soil here radiates warmth. After rain, when the earth elsewhere cools under wet air, the hill still breathes heat like an engine running underground. Hikers have measured surface temperatures far higher than anything nature can explain. And then there are the marks. Embedded in the rock at the summit are metallic patterns, strange, scorched shapes resembling machinery, plates etched with letters no one can read, hinges melted into stone as though massive doors once sealed something inside. One symbol recurs more often than others, a circle with 3 lines through its center, like a closed eye watching without rest. No excavation has ever revealed an entrance, no tunnels, no craters, but everyone who climbs agrees something lies beneath, and it has never left. Those who camp at the hill report sounds at night, the crunch of heavy footsteps circling their tents. 3 deliberate knocks, as though iron were struck with wood, and a deeper, scraping groan that seems to crawl up through the soil itself. Nothing visible, nothing explainable. Yet in the morning, the ground tells its own story, prints pressed into dust, barefoot yet inhuman, with toes stretched too long and strides climbing upward until they vanish. One explorer once left his phone recording by accident. When he listened later, the wind and night noises had cut off, replaced by a low whisper threaded through silence. Don't look, it is not time yet. Others never even needed recordings. They carried the hill back with them in dreams. 3 strangers who never met, each reported the same vision, a chamber of iron walls beneath the earth, lit by pulsing red lights, and at its center a door opening into blackness. They described hearing something beyond the threshold, shifting, waiting, but none could say what. When they woke, all 3 insisted it was not a dream at all, but a memory of something that had not happened yet. Theories compete, none comforting. Some believe the hill conceals a forgotten military installation, sealed and abandoned. Others argue for something older, pre-human architecture, a machine left buried long before people came to this land. A few insist it is no structure at all, but a being, alive beneath the rock, listening as centuries pass, waiting for its time to surface. And perhaps that is why the locals no longer speak of it. They know the desert has places you can visit and places you cannot disturb. They say sometimes, at night, the hill glows faintly at its peak, as if breathing, as if preparing. If you climb it, maybe you won't see anything unusual. Maybe the ground will feel solid beneath your feet, the rocks still and silent. But if you linger, if you close your eyes and listen, you might feel it. The subtle warmth pressing into your skin, the pulse that is not yours, the thought forming just behind your own, whispering in a voice you did not think. And you will wonder, was that me, or was it the hill thinking with me? Because whatever waits under the hill of iron doors does not knock from inside to come out. It waits for you to open, and when you do, it will not be the desert that changes. It will be you. 5 stories, 5 doors hidden in sand and stone, voices that call with names only you should know, shadows made of dust that walk when the wind itself resists them, ruins that carve words into your thoughts, a road where sleep trades lives, stones that fold time into a single, trembling second, and a hill that beats with a buried heart, iron-sealed but never silent. Each place is different, yet each carries the same thread the desert does not forget. It listens, it records, and it waits, whether through sound, through shape, through thought, or through the very soil. Something in Arizona's wastelands has been watching longer than we have been here, and every time someone stumbles into one of these places, it is not discovery, it is recognition. That is what makes this desert more than landscape. It does not just test survival, it bends identity. The question after each encounter is never what you saw, but who you were when you came back, and sometimes the answer is not the same. But Arizona's desert holds more than the stories you have heard tonight. There is another hill, unnamed on maps, where the earth never cools, where travelers say footprints appear hours before anyone walks them. Old legends whisper that it is not the ground following you, but your shadow moving first, as though another version of yourself walks ahead, waiting for you to catch up. The locals refuse to climb it now. They say it is not a place you visit, it is a place that visits you. Perhaps you have felt it already, that sense that something has been listening as you listened, that the silence of the desert has followed you even here, through this story. Maybe you will forget it when you close your screen, or maybe the next time you hear your name on an empty street, or see your shadow stretch wrong against a wall, you will remember. The desert remembers too. So tell me, out of all these doors we have opened tonight, which one stayed with you? Which voice, which shadow, Which place would you resist and which would you follow? Write carefully. Because in Arizona, some places do not just wake when you call them. They wake when you think of them. And maybe, even now, one of them just did